Okay. Adrian, good.
We're going.
Okay. So we'll get started on time. Appreciate everyone showing up this morning. Need to do a little bit of housekeeping before we hand over to Jack Daniels, our first keynote this morning. This is a cleared facility, so we need to be mindful of a few things. No one outside of Dynetics employees, Dynetics badges, can go past the double doors. We have security. On the other side of those double doors, the floor is electrified. There's guards, gates, and guns behind it. The guards are authorized to shoot to kill. Don't go past there. It'll cause me lots of problems if you go behind them. And Dynetics has been good enough to let us host this event here, so we need to be mindful and respectful of their facility and don't go back past those double doors. Just there's nothing to see back there. There's bathrooms along the back hallway. This is track 1 conference room. Track 2 is back to the right to the end of the hall, the West Conference Room, where there will be additional speakers speaking this morning. Want to make you aware, Evident.io is providing our breakfast and our breaks today, all the donuts and things that you see. If you see someone without a donut, hand them one. And Pluralsight is providing lunch for us today. We'll have pizza here coming in around 11:30. We'll break for lunch around 12. So in between going to the different presentations, go and grab refreshments. We got Cokes along the back. There's diet and water, etc., whatever you may want. Let's see what else. If there's an emergency, if there's a fire or anything, you can go back out the way you came, or just follow me. Because I'm headed out that door. But at this time, we'll hand off to our good friend Jack Daniels from Tenable Security, who is one of the founders of the Security BSides organization. We're very honored to have Jack here. It's really hard to get Jack's time because he lives on a plane somewhere in the world weekly, practically. He's either in a plane or on an interstate driving somewhere to support an event typically. So you guys help me welcome Jack to our event today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hey, it is... Oh, cool. Look, there are actually people here and stuff. So thanks for inviting me. Great venue. Look at this. People are paying attention and stuff. I guess I got to start the game, right? So this is going to be like most of mine. I'm going to wander. I had all sorts of ideas what I was going to talk about, and I just threw a ton of stuff together. Some old, some new, and I'm going to do it. And so I almost came up with a story, but then I started to realize in the past few months that stories, rants, and tangents with occasional content is probably going to be the title of every talk I give for the rest of my life. I'll finally be honest about that. So just for a little reference, you are here. The blue dots are places that have held Security BSides events since July of 2009, the first event. The green dots are places that have scheduled events, confirmed dates, scheduled events that have not hosted before. Williamsport, Pennsylvania, St. Louis. I'm trying to remember what the other one in the middle is. Calgary. A week ago, Lagos, Nigeria held an event. Just confirmed Kiev in the Ukraine. These events all happen because of the people that make them happen. That's the organizers, the sponsors, the speakers, and those of you that come here to make these things happen. One of the things that I like to stress is using the right words. There are no attendees at BSides. They're participants. Please remember that. Is this anyone's first time coming to a BSides event? Outstanding. I love to see that. So I'm not going to make fun of any particular conference other than RSA, but a lot of conferences do things like have founders circles, right? I've been going for 20 years. I'm really sorry. BSides, I'm skipping RSA for the first time in a decade. My wife and I are going to be on a boat. I'll get over it. I'll get over the loss. More about RSA. But you don't grow this way. 234 events. This is event number 234. since July of 2009. You don't grow a community or a group of communities without a large foundation, and the foundation has to grow with the community. So to those of you who have just joined us for the first time today, I'd like to welcome you to the Founders Circle, because we're all part of this foundation. I know that's terribly idealistic. You'll find out in this talk that I'm not the miserable, bitter old man that I pretend to be on the internet, at least not quite as bitter. So anyway, this is event 234. This is my 54th event coming. I've been fortunate enough to work for companies that let me support BSides. There are a handful of us at the global level, but most of these events, almost all of them, are put together by local people, local communities, local sponsors, and it brings people together, and it's fantastic to see. Just some numbers. 21 countries, every continent but Antarctica. Paul and I were going to figure out how to get that boat to Antarctica. 88 cities. There were 60 events in 2014, 61 in 2015. There are already another 30 scheduled for this year, and a lot of them come together fast. But everyone's part of this. And it spawned a lot of connections and communities. The idea is that they all represent who's local. And community is an interesting word. At their best, they support. Did I move that over? If we get outside of things, people, sociologists and others talk about tribes. And in these communities, we actually have multiple tribes. And sometimes they support us, and sometimes they cause tension. So since I've mentioned RSA, those of us that self-identify as hacker first and InfoSec later, it's our annual time to beat up on RSA and make fun of it and say it's an utter failure and it's completely irrelevant. And 35,000 people, over 500 exhibitors, and almost 500 presentations are going to happen in a couple of weeks. And if that's failure, I don't know. Irrelevant, it's called irrelevant by people that the 35,000 people there think are irrelevant. And then you can flip it around and say, so we have these stresses, and for those of us, and I'm sure looking around the room, a bunch of us actually straddle these communities. So for those of us that have a job and stuff, we're part of that business side of it, but we like to have fun, right? We want to have some fun. We like breaking stuff, mostly within the rules. I would say within the rules, but I've met us, so mostly within the rules, we like to break stuff. What I want to focus on is where communities pull us together, where small and large communities or tribes, pull us together. Because one of the things that comes up every few years is the challenges of working in the technology industry, particularly those of us in the security space. Even people like me that don't have real jobs anymore. This quote has stuck with me for years since Dan Geer said it. Security is too wide to master, too deep to know, and too fast to photograph. Let that sink in for a minute. Dan Geer said that. Man, I am screwed, right? I mean, if Dan Geer can't master it, can't keep up, we're screwed. So what do we do? Well, those of us that secure systems, it's kind of a challenge, right? Bad people are after us all the time. We have a hard time getting buy-in. And when we do a good job as defenders, nothing happens. It's like, that's not hitting sales quota, right? That's not getting a bonus for sales. As a red team, when we have a good day, we've proven the people that are giving us money are insecure. Wait, that's an odd level of success. It creates some tension. The bad days, we had a pigeon pooping on our heads, right? So I want to talk about how we cope. And what I want to talk about, I've done some research through the years with a bunch of people off and on about stress and burnout. And I don't really want to talk about stress and burnout anymore. But what I want to talk about is survivability, right? So this is one of the ways we cope. It's one of mine. I don't recommend it. I drink too much. I'm not going to pretend it's healthy. I'm not going to pretend it's not fun in moderation or beyond moderation if others will pick up after you. But, we need to thrive. There aren't enough of us to do what needs to be done. We get pushed harder and harder. If any of you are in forensics and incident response, you have my sympathy. The reason I am doing this talk today on survival skills is that in the past couple of years, I've had a bunch of younger folks come up to me and talk to me about stress and burnout and how to survive. What they've told me is things like 5-6 years ago, you guys were doing all that stress and burnout stuff. I saw your talk at RSA, or I saw your talk at BSides Vegas, or I read the articles. And I thought, what's wrong with you old people? How can you be burnt out? This is the most awesome job in the world. I'm getting paid for my hobby. 4, 5, 6 years later, they're like, hey, so I was making fun of you, but can we talk for a minute? You're 29. We can't talk. You can't burn out. I want to quit someday. I want to retire. One person ended up in the hospital. Started out as what they thought was food poisoning. Turned out to be, and it was incident response person, working the typical 40-hour work week, minimum of 3 of them per week. It's an old joke of mine, but man, in this business, we love that 40-hour work week, right? We've been bare minimum 2 every week. Ended up in the hospital, and basically, there's all sorts of fancy terms for it because them doctors make up words and acronyms, right? Glad we don't do that in our business. And it's basically adrenaline poisoning. Couldn't turn off the adrenal glands. It's often fatal in young people, 30-ish. Managed to save that one. It's like, wow, we got to talk about this again. But instead of talking about the bad stuff, we're going to talk about how to survive. Because believe it or not, I like you. I like most people. I make exceptions for some, but and it's not just about stress and burnout. It's about making bad decisions. So I want to talk about someone that I thought for many years was the greatest sailor and mariner I ever knew. Captain Robin Walbridge. Grew up in the Florida Panhandle. Canoes, rowboats, anything on the water. Became a master sailor, master mariner. Did the route from the Middle East back to the U.S., running the oil tankers. He ran paddle wheelers, steamboats on the navigable river, steamboats, paddle wheelers, tourist boats, sailboats. Master mariner. Spent years on the rows. For 17 years was the captain of the replica of Bounty that was built for the Marlon Brando movie, built in Smith and Ruland up in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia in 1960. It was a movie prop. This was the last ship-rigged. If we have any, all right, so we got engineers. I know we're in Huntsville, so there's some engineers here, so people are going to be pedantic about terminology, right? This was the last ship-rigged ship you could buy a ride on. Ship-rigged meaning carrying squares on all 3 masts. There are a lot of things, a lot of really big sailboats. Most of the tall ship stuff is schooners. Some are barks or barkentines like the Eagle. But it was a historical vessel. It was built as a movie prop, but they built the hull well. She had a rough life. But he was the master of that boat for 17 years. For any of you that have looked at the sky, again, we're in Huntsville. I bet some of you have looked up once or twice. One of the times I was sailing on this ship, we were trying to do some celestial navigation. Robin came on deck, opened the wooden box with his really cool brass sextant, took a sight off of the moon, and was closer than the first mate shooting stars. For those of you that don't know what that means, the phrase shoot the moon goes back to taking a sight off of the fastest moving body that we're likely to see in the sky. It takes a level of skill and timing that is unbelievable. He got this movie prop through a lot of stuff, but he got too comfortable and made some bad judgments. He got overconfident, made some bad judgments. He was under stress. I can't say for sure, but that little orange dot that you might be able to see here could be his body. He hasn't been found. So he was lost 3.5 years ago. He made some bad judgments. What did it do? It took out his life. It took out a beautiful ship. One other member of crew was lost, Claudine Christian. Yes, she actually was a descendant of Fletcher Christian of the original Bounty fame. 14 people spent a terrifying night in life rafts. bunch of people from the Coast Guard risked life, as they do every day, shot 90 miles offshore in an H-60. Those look big and powerful when they're like flying over you on the ground. 90 miles offshore in H-60 is nothing. Anyway, saved 14 people. Well, what happened? Stress of the job? Made some bad calls. Now, hopefully none of us are going to end up with having hundreds of people scrambling to save dozens of lives. But this is confidence. This is overconfidence. This is a reminder that, sometimes bad things happen. So let's not be quite that. Let's very quickly tear through a bunch of the stress and burnout stuff. Not to focus on the bad stuff, but let's get to how we avoid losing sight of what matters. We learned stuff. First of all, this is not Ponemon data. It is garbage like Ponemon data, but I freely admit it has problems. Oh, man, I did it again. I'm not supposed to make fun of Larry. Friends don't let friends cite Ponemon. What we know. So we got some good stuff out of it, and this is what I focus on. Most people feel they have strong support networks. We don't use them enough, but we feel we have strong support networks. We feel that our work is valuable to us. To us. Not always to others, but a lot of time others value our work. We make the world a safer place in our own special way, right? We're not jumping out of helicopters, but what we do, we're trying to make the world a safer place. We like to think critically. We like a challenge. We like to problem solve. So did Robin. He got wrong. He got a challenge wrong. It tends to pay well, but that's not the prime motivator. So especially in the hacker side of the world, we don't like the egos, the elitism, the rock star stuff, says the idiot in a Chinese smoking jacket and top hat. But it's a stunt, right? It's I'm just an old storyteller. I don't know anything. We don't like management attitudes. There's a disconnect. Sometimes we need to understand them, right? We don't like politics. We don't like the media hype. People told us they didn't like the media hype 5 or 6 years ago. That hasn't gotten any better, right? I mean, the stuff that recently we saw a couple of different things that were just like, Microsoft stores all your crypto keys. Well, that's because you kept losing them and they didn't. So you don't have to. They told you they were going to do it. That's. There are plenty of reasons to not like Microsoft, but encrypting your stuff by default and then them keeping a copy of the key is better than when nothing was encrypted. Oh, right. And those sort of, stories, things that you look at and it's like, wait, isn't this 5, 6, 8, 14, 25 years old? Yeah. But we needed it. So we've complained about the 24-hour news cycle, cable TV making everything news, and now they've found us, and now we're news. More things we like. There's a ton to learn. We have fun. We get together at events like this. Good community. There's innovation. And we get to work with smart people, right? I mean, I'm in a room full of smart people. This is cool, right? So, where do we go? Let's do a couple of definitions. This is what we're trying to avoid. These are warning signs. I'm only putting them up here because we're not going to dwell on this stuff, but burnout is a crisis in your relationship with work. And for those of us who are professionals, exhaustion, this is more mental than anything. Cynicism. Now, this is a challenge. This is what we've found repeatedly is that in InfoSec, cynicism is a core competency. And there's a real challenge with the standard tests for these things because it is very hard to be efficient in security without a healthy dose of skepticism. I mean, it takes a lot of skepticism. The challenge is when you cross the line to cynicism, which a lot of us do. I will point out that years ago, George Carlin made the observation that inside every cynic is a disappointed idealist. That's probably another little peek into your psyche that you didn't need this morning, but that's there. The other one is professional efficacy. This is where we think we're effective. We personally. And one of the things that we've seen is once you suffer an event, the adrenaline, the success makes you think you're not tired, and then you collapse. It's one of the things we see. So it makes it important to keep an eye on things. So we had a bunch of stuff. This is the biggest of the studies that we've done and others have done since then. And here's what I wanted to focus on when I originally was looking at this. 58 people had no warning indicators, no signs of anything out of this survey, and it was fantastic. And so I looked at it and looked at the data, and this is what I found. It was a better random number generator than anything the NSA has backdoored us with. Who needs some coffee? I'm great at bad metaphors, by the way, so here's one. Are we doing on time? This is one way of thinking about it. We have the burdens of... So how does coffee work? We take some coffee beans, we grind them up, put them in a little thing, hammer them in. So we add pressure, we add heat and water, or heat and steam. And what comes out the bottom is either really bitter and miserable, or just a wonderful elixir of life. And this process, what comes out, we add heat and pressure, and if we have the right coping mechanisms, if the pressure's dialed in right, and we've got the right grind and the right equipment, or right coping mechanisms, we get some wonderful stuff out, and we have a good life. So burdens, coping, burnout, and impact. Work, family, personal, and social. Wait, family, personal, and social are support mechanisms. Why are they burdens? You all know why they're burdens. Coping, social and professional support. Autonomy and control, personality, and personal coping skills. I'm on a 2-person team at Tenable. Last year I was on a 3-person team. We were all strategists. That got split up. It was Marcus Random, Space Rogue, and myself. For those of you who know us or know of us, I want you to think about that for a minute. That means Space Rogue was the young idealist. Now it's just Marcus and I. We don't have titles anymore. That makes him the young one and me the idealist. That's terrifying. So personality and coping skills. But the thing about Marcus is he doesn't get stress. He's just a carrier because he simply doesn't care. It's like, I almost cared about something and I had to go out and shoot things. That's Marcus, yeah. He has a great way of disposing of hardware. He buys laptops by the dozen, uses them until they act weird, then he doesn't trust them, he puts them in a corner, and then in the spring, he goes out behind the barn on his farm in the mountaintop of Pennsylvania, and couple of 50 caliber rounds, and the hard drives are non-recoverable. Anyway, so personality is a big factor of it. Burnout, exhaustion, cynicism, depersonalization. So if you work with people a lot, instead of cynicism, they talk about depersonalization. So if you're a healthcare worker, mental health worker, social worker, whatever. And then our efficiency goes away. Reduced commitment, low productivity, physical and mental illness, substance abuse. See, tangents and rants. I don't see any. One of the things that happens in the hacker world is that we get people who get into biohacking, and that's cool. There are people that work their exercise program. If any of you know Chris Hoff or follow him, his diet, his exercise, I mean, it's crazy. Dude is ridiculously jacked and healthy. He obviously has way too much to live for. I would rather eat well and drink, but but there are other people who start playing with chemicals, right? And calling drug abuse biohacking is lying to you and lying to your friends and family and the people that count on you. We've lost a couple of people. Barnaby Jack was brilliant. He was a huge loss a few years ago. I'm not going to say anything bad about Barnaby Jack other than he made some decisions, but there's a learning moment there. We lost somebody brilliant because he thought he was smarter and tougher and could handle drugs better than Jimi Hendrix, John Belushi, and generation after generation after generation, going backwards to the beginning of time when we figured out how to ferment and then distill things. Don't do that. And if you see people doing it, it's like, hey, I grew up in the 60s and 70s. I'm not going to make fun of anybody's recreational use of pharmaceuticals, but enough is enough. So enough of that rant. I just don't want to lose any more friends. I don't want to lose anybody else. We have a hard time with it, and it's not simple because the problem with the war on drugs is it's also a war on chronic pain management. I hope none of you know how important that is, but a war on chronic pain management is horrible. So don't let yourself or your friends or family get too far down that thing. Well, that's the challenge we all have. Anyway, the trick is to draw the line there, focus on these things. We're going to talk about a couple of things about work in particular in a minute. These guys, this room there is here. There are people around you. One of the things that we've found is being able to say, man, I'm freaking overwhelmed. It's like, damn, that sucks. What's going on? My boss is an idiot. It's universal. You know where you hear that most is self-employed people. It's like, my boss is an imbecile. That's a revelation we all have when you start being responsible for things. You're like, damn, maybe that last boss wasn't quite so dumb. General common sense. So this needs to be said. This is really dumb stuff. Easier said than done, but take time for yourself. Here's a challenge. We're going to turn some stuff off. No, I like technology. No, really, off. Right? Even for a short time, take a break from it. Don't, for example, go on a cruise with your spouse or significant other and end up blowing $250 or $300 worth of internet charges because you're on the stupid boat and have to pay Holland America for internet connectivity when you should be with your family. That'd be dumb. So I've heard. Get out of InfoSec for hobbies, recreational, family, personal time, right? I have a whole bunch of hobbies I don't have time for because, like, I work and stuff. I'm an amateur blacksmith. I'm not very good at it. I've spent less and less time. I like to do wood carving. Just do something. And here's a challenge we've got. But some people get into this because hacking, playing with computers, it's a hobby, right? Maybe you're older and started out breaking games so you could get them for free. DMCA, that was pre-DMCA. It's okay. Statute of limitations is up on that. It's okay. Maybe you just like, pushing limits. Maybe you like connecting with people on the internet. And you figured out how to make that a job. And what you'll find in a lot of folks who have who run companies now in the InfoSec space is it went from hacking as a hobby, hacking as a club, hacking as a thing. It became a company. We started making money at it. And once we started making money, we had to run it like a business. And that drove all of the joy out of your hobby. And then the business grew and you needed more good people. And so you found young people who were passionate about technology and you hired them and you drove the joy out of their hobby. And then one day you realized this. Find another hobby. Or, hey, whatever. Take a break. Health matters. Again, hypocrite here. One of the great things about giving presentations is I get to point out what a hypocrite I am. It's like, health matters. Growing old sucks. It is usually better than the alternative. I got one word that comes up. Don't face challenges alone. Share it. It's whatever your support mechanism is. And it can be the other drunk old guy at the bar. Neither of you remember it, but you feel a lot better for having spilled your guts. It can be family. It can be friends, can be coworkers. It can be it can be religious. It can be whatever it is that gives you that ability to share things. You can pay somebody a lot of money to lie on a couch. You can, have a drink with have a glass of wine other than at communion with the priest and talk about it. Whatever works for you, but don't face the hard stuff alone. Friends and family, assets and liabilities, mutual support rocks. the reason that we started the stress and burnout thing was there were a handful of us that on Twitter, before Twitter tried to ruin Twitter, which they're doing a really good job of, we connected via Twitter and we would keep tabs on people because we'd see each other only at conferences. And so Josh Corman would ping me and say, "You doing okay? You look kind of stressed at BeanSec." And I'd be like, "I'm all right." I'd ping him and say, "RSA, you were a basket case." It's like, "Yeah, that thing always kills me." It's like, "Hey," and then it expanded to added a couple more people. And then it was like, "Hey, did you see this guy at that thing? You looked like, did you see her? What's going on?" And it's like, I don't want to pry, but you know anything? It's like, yeah, there's a divorce thing. It's like, oh, man, all right. So just keeping tabs on each other and trying to make it better. And that expanded, and the circle expanded until we cared. And, those things matter. So Josh Corman and I, this will be the first year missing our post-RSA gathering, because we take security seriously, and RSA is a very commercial event. And every year after RSA, on that Friday, I rent a car, pick him up somewhere. We drive into wine country. Go to the routine is settled into. We go to the Girl in the Fig, this little French bistro in Sonoma. It's not a date, but everybody assumes it is. We actually were asked if it was an anniversary last year when we went. It's like, cool, hey, whatever. But we get out, we vent. Cars, cone of silence. Vent about friends, family, life, work, the industry, whatever. We make that drive through San Francisco, over the Golden Gate, up through, the places with the houseboats, and Sausalito, and then up. And by the time we get to Sonoma, we're much better. We hit a winery afterwards, and we're just like, okay. It's like I'm good until Black Hat, in which case I'll be fed up again, and we're just going to sit at Frankie's and drink our problems away. But that sort of thing, if you've got somebody that you can do that with, whether they're friend, family, whatever, just let it go. I can't say much about Road Warriors because Paul's in the back of the room and has out-road warriored most of us. But you may have noticed this. Travel for work isn't quite as much fun as travel for fun. You can make it suck less sometimes. I realize I'm in a special position and I get to add a day here or there and make things better, right? I have a couple of months. I've got to go back to London for 3 days. I will go for 8 days. I will see friends. I will travel, wander around. Makes it better. Just if you can pay more attention to hotels. What I find is I try to stay like a mile or two from venue if weather permits and walk, because you clear your head. Just think about it. Now, if you're trapped using some horrible, starts with C, 6-letter word, travel portal and expense system, it's still going to suck. But think about what you can do. And one of the things that I've found personally as a non-athletic person is really find that hotel that's right down the street and make yourself walk that quarter mile, half mile, clear your head, listen to music or something as you're going, and the world looks better. This is the magic word. If you haven't figured this out, if you travel a lot, hydration is so important. Airplanes dehydrate you like you would not believe. If you dine on road food, it is usually not necessarily well balanced. If you live on caffeine and alcohol, both are dehydrating. You have to compensate. There's another tangent. I didn't even expect this one to come in. So one of my favorite drinks lately, I accidentally made at ThoughtCon last year. It's a cold brew, concentrated coffee cut with rum. That's, I call it a race condition because the alcohol. It's great. It's wonderful, right? It's perfect for HackerCons because you can get wired and drunk at the same time. And if you don't watch it, your brain gets dehydrated and it shrinks up into a little pea and rattles around in your skull and hurts really bad. So I've heard. Water. Although water can be challenging, especially if you've had too much to drink, not proud of it, but I have discovered, you're in places where there isn't even the $8 bottle of Evian sitting on the counter, so there's no water available except for the swamp water that comes out of the tap. So then you go to the coffee machine and you put one little packet of sugar in the swamp water so you can choke it down, whatever it takes, get some water. Actually, what I do is drink way too much Gatorade or Powerade or one of those. I always do it on ice to cut it because that's way too much sugar. But take your water, water. Antihistamines before you fly, even if you're not plugged up. If you're somewhere with forced hot air heat, use saline spray. I'm not talking neti pots. You'll be less likely to get sick the more hydrated you are. And then finally, so the race condition, I've got a new version of that, which is kind of like a grown-up milkshake, which is a mixture of good rum, sweetened condensed milk, and espresso. That will rock you. There's sugar and fat and booze and caffeine. That's magical. And dehydrating. But anyway, water. This is the one that's weird. Do more stuff. Here's the key. Do stuff you like and or find rewarding. Because we've already gone through, we've managed to drive the joy out of our hobbies in a lot of our lives, or our bosses do, or whatever. Satisfying and rewarding. Mentoring is fantastic. We're trying to bring a lot of new people in. We finally have the opportunity to mature our industry with college people who've chosen a career path. Now, there's a challenge of diversity because InfoSec is full of engineers from other fields. It's full of washed up auto mechanics like me. It's full of all sorts of interesting people, but it's kind of hard to stabilize and mature this. We have the opportunity to do this, but those folks coming in, they've just come out of college. I'm a college dropout, but we all know what fresh college folks are like. Buried in student loan debt, back to the stress problems. But they need a little mentoring. Maybe they're folks at schools, high schools, colleges, wherever that could use some mentoring. The best part about mentoring people is you get to see what a hypocrite you are. Whatever you do, remember this in your career. After you hang up the phone or disconnect on Skype or whatever. And if you pay attention to that, you actually might address some of your own hypocrisies and take better care of yourself. Volunteer, mentor, speak, teach, share. So volunteer at BSides, that's cool. Or, a lot of other groups. Speak, I don't know anything. It's like, I learned something. Hey, I learned how to use Nmap to do some rudimentary testing against our mail server. So there are two ways that people respond to this. One is, duh, everybody's known this for decades. The correct response is, hopefully you brought a unique perspective, and you're willing to go to the Windows Server user group or someplace where there are folks that haven't discovered this, and you share what you know. And you know what happens when you share what you know? Other people are more willing to share with you. You help build that community, that network, you start connecting with people. The next thing you know, you're in a Chinese smoking jacket and stupid top hat giving a keynote talk. I like to rely on this dude, Newton, who changed the way we look at the world forever. Borrowed this line. It's not original to him. If I've seen further, it's only by standing on the shoulders of giants. There's a little bit of humility there for the guy that changed the way we look at the world forever. Of course, when we're volunteering, there is a challenge. As Gandhi told us, the problem with altruism is there's nothing in it for me. That's not actually true. I think it was Lincoln that said the problem with Twitter is attribution. But learn something new. Education is work, but if you're in InfoSec, you like to learn. Or you're out of InfoSec, right? But find stuff that's satisfying. I have a new hobby. Well, I've been doing it for years now. I spend a lot of time on craft cocktails. I've done craft cocktail, introduction to bitters, craft cocktail workshops and sessions and talks for the past few years at a variety of events. But I'm learning something. It's cool. I'm listening to the audiobook of Proof as I drive around. I'm not drinking as I drive, but I am listening to it. it offers hope of, career advancement or whatever. But, back to Gandhi's point, it turns out he was wrong. Because when you give into our communities, when you become an active member of your tribes, you make connections. People trust you. You trust them. The number of people that I've talked to whose careers have advanced because they decided to share what they know at some level, get engaged, volunteer, do things, it makes a difference. Bounty, I was welcome on that ship because I was a volunteer shipwright for quite a while. I was a volunteer crew member for a while. I am welcome in the shops of some of the best blacksmiths and artisans in the eastern United States because I was a board member. I was noob, no skills, but I was a board member and helped sustain the New England blacksmiths for many years because I could push a broom and I could vote on budget things. And because of that, turns out there's something in it for me. That's not why I did it, but there is value in it. And then there's this one. Market's hot now. A couple of friends of mine like to say the best job for you is the one you already have with a little tuning. I'm paraphrasing. Past couple of companies I've worked for, my job has evolved continuously, and it's generally worked out well. I complain about my job, and I'll complain about all sorts of things all the time. I have no right to. I have a freaking awesome job. Seriously. I hang out with Space Rogue and Marcus Ranum professionally. That's my job. I hang out with Ron Gula and Renaud Dreyessen. That's my job, right? I come out and this is not really, but everything I do with BSides is employers support. Previous employer did. Part of the deal. I'm underpaid and overindulged, and that's cool for me at this point. I don't have kids in college. I don't have student loans because I'm a college dropout. But you have to think about whether or not it's time for a change. If you can't solve the problem, this is the time to think about it. We may be in a bubble, so don't plan on doing a change every year like some people do. Thankfully, we're down here. We're not in the D.C. area or the Silicon Valley area where people do it. But, if you're miserable and can't fix it, maybe it is time for a change. Let's tear through a couple of things about workplace. These are especially important if you're a manager. You'll note these things are decades old. Capacity to influence organizational policies, especially with those with a direct impact on staff members' work, reduces susceptibility to burnout. If I can have some input into what's going on, I will feel better about it. Duh. Undermining autonomy reduces potential for significant accomplishments. I mean, this is Dilbert, is what we're saying here. In contrast, organizational environments that provide staff members with sense of control enhance engagement with work. If you can't do that, at least explain what's going on. If you're a manager, who's got too many well-trained and qualified people? Who has a good time hiring people? At Tenable, some of our products are written in C. Renaud Dreyessen writes C code squeaky clean. He's been doing it for a very long time. The first version of Nessus was released, written in native C, when he was 17 years old. Yes, he's still a kid. He's freaking brilliant. Try to find a really good C developer that writes compact, portable code that will pass scrutiny for a widely deployed security product. Yeah, go ahead, right? And there are a lot of other things, right? We get the HR emails. I need someone with 8 years experience in Windows 10. Stop it. Come on, you're laughing because you've all seen them. I've got a standard boilerplate that I use for the first. I usually just ignore them, but every now and then I get them. A couple of weeks ago, I got a 2-month contract, not contract to hire offer for help desk support. I declined. As a manager or employer, provide feedback. At least let people know what's going on. Sometimes you're the manager and you're wedged in the middle. You're getting crap from below and crap from above. At least communicate. Manage the workloads and workload distribution. We got too much work to do. We're going to put it all on these people, and they're going to burn out or just quit and walk away, and then you're going to have to do it yourself. Maybe it's time for you to start a consultancy and take those good employees with you. Volkswagen, besides cheating on diesel emissions, disconnects a lot of their employees in Germany, not here in the U.S., because the U.S. is a different world. You don't have access to email after hours unless you're in a certain set of certain groups within the organization. Nope, you can't get that. You know what? Tomorrow morning. I used to work for a German company. Germans have a reputation of being very hardworking. It's because they're in Europe. Some of you know what I mean. Offer education. I'm sure you've all heard the line, the two executives talking. But what if we train all of our people and they leave? And the other one says, what if we don't and they stay? So it comes down to what matters. Oh, look, storytelling. Jackson can tell stories. I actually put it in there this time. So what matters? Neither of these is the real guitar. These are both things you can buy from either Gibson or Fender. The pretty one is the sparkly one is a variant of Strat called the Beast. Dick Dale's guitar based on that. The other one is, of course, the ES 355 based on Lucille. And who knows the story of why Lucille is called Lucille? Got a couple of folks do. Let's start on this side, though. This is the Beast. Dick Dale has a guitar called the Beast. He was a starving surf musician in the 50s. Went to Leo Fender and said, hey, I don't have any money, but I'm playing these things and I need help and I can't make it loud enough and stuff. And for some odd reason, Leo Fender liked the challenge. So he did a couple of things. He built a guitar for Dick Dale, who is left-handed, gave it to him, and he played it backwards because he just learned wrong. He just took a right-handed guitar, played it the wrong way. So he gave him a custom left-handed guitar, and then he had to restring it for the way he was used to playing, which gave an interesting thing, which was that strung that way, the thin strings, the high strings, end up being shorter as opposed to the standard stringing. That means they're less prone to breaking. But he worked with Dick Dale for years to perfect the Beast. If you ever see him in show, he's still a consummate showman. He's getting old. He's in his third battle with cancer. I don't think he's going to win this one. Saw him a couple of months ago, 75-year-old cancer and diabetes battle, and he still puts on a better show than most concerts you see. But that guitar that he's got is one that Leo Fender tuned for him. The amps that he plays with are Fender Showmans that Leo Fender built personally for him. He has taken those amps to Bose and other places to try to reproduce it. They can't. They're tube amps. It started out with 10-watt amps. He would play them until they literally burst into flames at the end, and that would end the show. And he would take the burned-out stuff back to Leo and say, I kind of broke it. He's like, what are you doing? And he would fix it, because Leo Fender was a consummate hacker. Drive it until it breaks and fix it better. So he finally, after months of this, went to a show and saw all these people packed in and saw him shredding on the Strat. He's like, yep, that's what I do. I Strat amp, boom, flames. And thus, these custom Showman amps that were built for him. Guitar that Leo tuned, Showman amps. Paving the way for Marshall and The Who and other people that made a lot of noise and continue. Dick Dale without that guitar isn't Dick Dale. I mean, that thing it's like Willie Nelson with that guitar of his. Holes in the fretboard and everything. The top, but that's it. He can't play anything else. So that's important. But don't make the assumption that something like that is important. Don't make the assumption that exchange is all important and email is all important. Lucille, B.B. King had just dropped $35 for a new guitar. And he was playing a show in Arkansas at a juke joint plywood building. The way they did heat in those days was they put a 55-gallon steel drum in the middle of the room, half filled it with kerosene, and then lit it on fire. Band's playing. Fire breaks out. Everybody runs out. The band's outside. BB realizes his guitar is inside. He runs back in, grabs his guitar, gets on the bus, and off they go. Gets in the car and off they go. The next day they find out that a handful of people died in that fire. Turns out 2 men were fighting over a woman named Lucille. He named the guitar Lucille because he wanted a reminder to never do anything that stupid again. But he bought guitars off the shelf. If you go to Hard Rock cafes and other things, you'll find things that are labeled Lucille. He used ES-355s. Tidbit for the musically inclined. The ES-355 is a stereo guitar. He's one of the few artists that used that. It's part of the if you've heard his stuff in live when he was still with us, or some of his better recordings, that's some of the magic there, is he was playing a stereo electric guitar. It's how things are almost but not quite the same from ear to ear. But he was able to buy things, do a quick tune. He was a master musician. He needed a Lucille, not the Lucille. It comes down to what's important to you. And so if you will forgive me a bit of idealism, let's go back to Isaac Newton. I do not know what I may appear to the world, but to myself I seem to have been only like a boy playing on the seashore, diverting myself now and then, finding a smoother pebble or prettier shell than ordinary, whilst the great ocean of truth lay all undiscovered before me. That was Isaac Newton. Thought he was looking at pretty pebbles and shells while the ocean of truth lay before him. I will leave you with this thought. Find your pebbles, find your shells, and see where they take you. Thank you very much.
So we'll take a quick break. We'll take a quick break here. You guys grab coffee, Cokes, donuts, whatever. Track 1 is in this room, and track 2 is in the room down the hall, the West Conference Room. Thank you.